Texas is number one. No matter if you like it, just take it, sit down, and write it. Shout out to Nelly. The preseason coaches poll is out, and your Texas Longhorns stand alone at the top. What does it mean? We'll talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, PK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please remember to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a comment. That's one of the fastest ways to help us grow right here on Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Some unfortunate injury news to get into. Also, 3 X Factors who are flying under the radar so far at Texas Fall Camp. We'll get to those stories a little bit later in today's show. But earlier today, the first iteration of the 2025 USA Today Coaches Poll was released. Well, you didn't have to scroll very far to find the Texas Longhorns. Actually, you didn't have to scroll at all because Texas is at the very top. That's right. For the first time in program history, the Texas Longhorns will open a season as the number 1 team in the coaches poll. Kind of hard to believe with all the success that this program has had over the years that they've never started the year in the coaches poll as the top ranked team in America. But here they are in 2025, one of the favorites to win the national championship. And in the eyes of the coaches, the best team in the nation going into the year. The Horns received 28 of a possible 67 first place votes. That's 8 more than anyone else. The team that they're ranked 1 spot ahead of, and the team that got the second most first place votes, well, that's the team that the Longhorns will see in week 1, 26 days from now. That's right. If there wasn't enough hype already surrounding Longhorns Buckeyes matchup, it's now number 1 versus number 2, at least according to the coaches. That's game of the century stuff right there. Oh, yeah. So, again, a rematch from the Cotton Bowl, 2 blue bloods, 2 premier programs. College Game Day is going to be there. It'll be Lee Corso's last ever headgear pick. And then now everything else, you throw the fact that, at least according to the coaches, these are the top 2 teams in the land that'll be duking it out on August 30th. I mentioned that Ohio State got 20 first place votes. Penn State was ranked 3rd, followed by Georgia and then Notre Dame to round out the top 5. So before I continue, I would love to get y'all's thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below. What say you? Do you agree with Texas being at the top? Would you have somebody else there instead? If so, who would that be? Would love to hear from y'all. A few notes on the poll itself before I kind of dive into that question. Texas will play 4 teams that are in the top 25. At number 2, Ohio State. At number 4, Georgia. And then Florida came in ranked 17th. So at number 17. And then the 4th ranked opponent on Texas's schedule, at least as of right now, that is Texas A&M. They came in at number 21. So according to the coaches, Texas will play its 3 toughest opponents away from Austin. And I think if you surveyed 100 Texas fans and you asked them to rank the 3 most difficult games on the Longhorns 2025 schedule, I think the most common answer you would get, Georgia, Ohio State, Florida. Maybe you flip-flop the first 2 and put Ohio State ahead of Georgia, but I think most Texas fans believe that those are the 3 hardest games that Texas will play in the regular season. I tend to agree with that as well. So the 3 toughest games will be away from Austin this year. I better not hear people complaining about Texas having an easy schedule. I'm sure we will when the Longhorns are in the mix at the end of the year once again. A couple of other schedule nuggets. There are 9 SEC teams ranked in the top 25. That includes Texas, so 9 total. Oklahoma is not included in that group of 9. For the first time since 1999, that's wild here, OU will not start the year ranked in the preseason top 25 in the coaches poll. The AP poll comes out 7 days from now, so we'll see if the Sooners are ranked there. But, boy, how the mighty have fallen. Oklahoma unranked in the coaches poll to begin the season. We'll see where these teams stack up in the rankings, obviously, when we get to the Cotton Bowl in early October. But, yeah, Texas will play 4 of the other 8 preseason ranked teams in this coaches poll. A couple of weeks ago, Steve Sarkisian was speaking at the Texas High School Coaches Association event in San Antonio, and he was asked whether or not he cared about his team's preseason ranking. He said, quote, "I don't really care about the rankings, truth be told. I've sat up here and said the rankings don't matter when we weren't ranked very highly. I don't think that's going to change if we are ranked higher than Ohio State. Preseason rankings are great. I think they're great for the fans. I think they're great for the popularity of our sports. It keeps the conversation of college football on the forefront of people's minds, the media, things of that nature. I think it's awesome for our sport, the fact that we're talking about week 1 matchups and all of those things. But in reality, they don't matter. What we do on the field and the way we perform is going to ultimately be what dictates how our season goes. That part doesn't hit me too much that way," end quote. So I agree with Steve Sarkisian. I think preseason rankings are great for the sport. A lot of people are trying to get rid of them. I can't figure out why. But at the end of the day, they don't really mean anything. All that matters at a place like Texas is where you're ranked at the end of the season. So, yeah, it's cool. You're making school history. First time that you've ever started a year as the number 1 team in the coaches poll. That's great. You've earned that spot. But no one's going to remember that if Texas comes up short of expectations this coming season. All that matters is where you are when the year is all said and done. Being preseason number 1 is cool. Being postseason number 1 is a hell of a lot cooler. Now, diving into the question, is it fair that Texas is the number 1 team in the land? I think it is. They're the only team in the country with back-to-back appearances in the college football playoff semifinal. They made it 2 straight conference championship games. They've won 1. They were just picked to win the SEC. They had more players on the preseason all-conference team than any other school in the conference. Of course, they lost a lot, but they lost a lot last year and had an even better 2024 than they were in 2023. So they've already shown in the Steve Sarkisian era that they can withstand losing double-digit draft picks and be really good. And, oh, yeah, they did that in their first year in the Southeastern Conference. So this team is loaded with talent. They're loaded with depth. They're loaded with experience at key positions. They've got one of the best coaching staffs in the country. They also have continuity on the coaching staff. Not a lot of the teams that are ranked around Texas in this poll can say that they've got both of their coordinators. Help, all 3 of their coordinators, if you want to include special teams as well. Not a lot of teams have all 3 of their coordinators back. Texas is actually going into year 5 with the exact same crop of coordinators. So they've got pretty much everything that you would look for in a top-ranked team. Are there questions? Of course there are questions. That's why Texas was far from a unanimous number 1, and that's why Texas might not be the number 1 team when the AP poll comes out in a week. But you look at all of the teams right below Texas, Ohio State at number 2. They lost more players than the Longhorns did, and they lost both of their coordinators, and they don't know who their quarterback is going to be 26 days from now when their season starts against the Horns. You look at Penn State at number 3. Could James Franklin win a big game? I don't know. Is Drew Aller good enough? Are the receivers good enough? They've got a new defensive coordinator as well. They've got some guys to replace on that team. Georgia at number 4, another team with double-digit draft picks in the 2025 NFL draft. They're replacing a quarterback as well with a guy that not a lot of people know a whole lot about. You look at Notre Dame at number 5, same thing. Bunch of draft picks, new quarterbacks. You go down the line, there's no spotless team in college football this year. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Like, nobody is perfect this season, but I would take Texas's situation over just about everybody's in college football. Again, tons of talent, a lot of depth, experience in key positions. Yes, you're breaking in a new quarterback, but the quarterback you're bringing in is going into his 3rd year with the program, and we know who he is. 5-star recruit, all the hype, the training that he's had. We feel like he's ready for this moment. Again, I think Texas is in a really, really favorable position, and it's clear that I am not alone. So we'll see. Am I right? More importantly, are the coaches right? Time will tell, but Texas very worthy of being in the mix at number 1, and I have no problem with Texas getting that selection. Can't you tell by the hat that I'm wearing today? Again, for those of you who are curious, the preseason AP poll drops next Monday. That's the one that the TV partners will use. So when you're looking at the score bug for Texas, Ohio State in 26 days, The Coaches Poll ranking is not the one that you're going to see. It'll be the AP poll. That's the one that most people talk about throughout the course of the season until the actual CFP rankings come out. But, man, crazy that Texas has never been the number one team in the Coaches Poll to start a season. They are here in 2025, and we'll see where the Longhorns land in the AP poll 1 week from today. All right, once again, if you're watching on YouTube, comment below with your thoughts. Do you agree with the coaches? Should Texas be the top-ranked team in the sport? If not, where would you put Texas, and who would you have ahead of the Longhorns? Would love to hear from y'all. All right, unfortunately, we got to talk about injuries. Injuries were a big storyline for Texas during last year's fall camp. Unfortunately, they're already a storyline early in this year's fall camp. We'll talk about the Andre Cojoe news and try to figure out what it means for Texas. Coming up next, right here on Locked On Longhorns. Oh, but first, it's time to fuel up and turn it up with our friends at 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. That's right, the bold grape, ginger, and lime. It's the flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol, and boom, 5 Hour Energy turned it into a quick, energizing shot. So whether you're sinking birdies on the course or if you're just making memories with friends throughout the summer and into football season, this one is a hole-in-one for your energy game. And hey, let's be honest, it is hot out there. If you're on the course, if you're just trying to get through a work day, the sun, it can be draining. 5 Hour Energy comes in and they've got your back. The pick-me-up that you need is right there in one shot. It is so simple, and the great flavors, it's perfect. You got to try the new transfusion from our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Head over to 5hourenergy.com today. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order. Can't be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders, but check it out. Again, 5hourenergy.com. Use that promo code LOCKEDONGOLF, and you're going to get 20% off your order. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. The breaking news from earlier today, it sucks. Texas offensive tackle Andre Cojoe will miss the entirety of the upcoming 2025 season with a right knee injury on Texas football. Had it first. We'll give them the credit here. Sounds like Kojo suffered the injury in practice on Saturday, and the news dropped around lunchtime today. This is a big loss for Texas. Offensive line coach Kyle Flood said last week that Kojo was in competition to be the starting right tackle at Texas this season. Of course, replacing Cameron Williams, who's now with the Philadelphia Eagles. Felt like a two-horse race between Andre Cojoe and Brandon Baker, and it's a race that I'm sure the coaches would have loved to have seen play out over the remainder of training camp, but unfortunately, that won't happen. First of all, tough break for Andre Cojoe, a great kid going into his third year with the program. He's waited his turn, had the chance to transfer, decided to stay here. Not easy to find in today's college football where a kid's willing to stick it out and tough it out and actually wait his turn. It looked like Kojo finally had a chance at getting significant playing time this year. He entered this year's camp in the best shape of his career. He's worked really hard to have a shot, and now this happens. The game can be cruel. It sucks for him, wishing him all of the best and a very speedy recovery, and hopefully he can bounce back and be a factor for Texas in 2026. But a big bummer for him, and it's a big blow for the Longhorns on the offensive line in this season, right? You never want to assume anything, but because Kojo's now out, kind of feels like Brandon Baker is going to be this team's starting right tackle 26 days from now in the shoe. But you wonder about the depth beyond Brandon Baker at right tackle. Like the true freshman, Nick Brooks, he had a tremendous spring. Could he get some run at right tackle right now? There aren't a lot of obvious options for Texas on the offensive line. They don't have a ton of proven depth. Hell, they're replacing 4 starters from last year's squad. So you've got questions about some of the new starters on this year's unit. But then you go beyond the first 5, and you're really wondering what Texas has right there. So yeah, Nick Brooks, the true freshman, he was here for the spring, had a tremendous spring practice. So far in the fall, he's been working with the number 3 offense. I think part of that has to do with the fact that he got arrested in the offseason. think more of a doghouse situation than an ability situation. But maybe like Nick Brooks becomes your backup right tackle. Maybe he is now doing some cross training at left tackle and right tackle. I don't know. I mean, again, I think Brandon Baker is the guy. I felt like he was going to beat out Andre Cojoe for the starting job anyways. And now that Kojo is gone, it's really Baker's job to lose. But the depth behind him is a big question. We'll get to some of the other names here in a second. I will say this about Brandon Baker. There are plenty of reasons to be optimistic about what he's going to be. Former five-star, the second-ranked offensive lineman in the class of 2024, should say second-ranked offensive tackle in the recruiting class of 2024. It's not just in the state, that's in the country. He did appear in 8 games last season. No real significant playing time, but he at least got on the field. 6'4", 310 pounds. He's got the size. He's got the skill set to be a great player. The question is, can he be great right now? And obviously, he's going to be tested. I know the Ohio State defensive front lost a ton to the league, but it's Ohio State. They're going to have talent on the defensive front every single season. So it'll be a big test for Brandon Baker in his first game as a starter at Texas. He will be tested. Can he be great right off the bat? But I think the bigger question, again, is what happens if something happens to Brandon Baker? Texas is not deep on the offensive line, especially at tackle. Like if you asked me at the start of camp, BK, what's the one position that Texas can't afford to get anybody hurt? I think I would have said tackle. I really do. And sure enough, the first big injury during camp is to a tackle. So, we mentioned Nick Brooks, even though he's a true freshman, I already felt like he had a shot to be Trevor Goosby's backup at left tackle. Now he might need to cross train and just kind of be the backup tackle or the third tackle on the team, if you will, for the Longhorns in his first year. Some other options that you have, maybe another true freshman, Jordan Coleman. He could be in the mix. He was a 4-star out of high school, but remember, he was one of 3 players that Texas signed in this number 1 class that wasn't here for the spring. So he's a little bit behind the 8 ball. He's only really gone through 1 true practice in his Texas career. Now, all of a sudden, he might be getting reps with the number 2 offense at right tackle. That's not an ideal position to be in. Another name to keep an eye out on, sophomore Jaden Chapman. He's an option as well. He's practiced at both tackle and guard during his Texas career. So one of those tweener guys, I would think, because Texas has a little bit more at guard. They just have more depth at the interior of the offensive line that maybe Chapman starts to focus more on playing tackle just to make sure Texas has enough bodies there on the outside. But it's just not ideal. I mean, case in point, it is not ideal. Honestly, at this point, there's no backup tackle on this roster that can be trusted. It's not to say that nobody can be good. I mean, some of these backups will eventually start at Texas and turn into great players. I'm not saying like they're all bad and they're going to stay bad. It's just we haven't seen them play at Texas, so we don't know if they're great. So there's reason to question what they've got. Again, some people are having questions about the starting offensive line. You get to the number 2s and the number 3s, and I think it's very fair to be at least a little concerned with what Texas has from a depth standpoint up front. So that's a big question. And look, let's be honest here. I know hindsight is 2020, but there's maybe a little bit of reason now to question Coach Sark's decision to not add more depth in the transfer portal at offensive line. I mean, Texas added double-digit players from the portal this offseason, and they added to a lot of spots where they lost a bunch of guys from last year's team, right? Especially on the defensive line. Now, the Texas offensive line, again, you lose 4 starters from last year. Feels like an obvious spot to at least look at the portal to bring in an offensive lineman to have some more experience and to add more depth to what you've got on your roster. That's not what Texas did this year. So, again, hindsight is always 2020. I think if the coaching staff knew Andre Cojoe was going to go down on the first weekend of camp, they probably would have tried to add somebody either in the winter or after the spring. But, I just hope this is something we're not talking about all season, right? Hopefully we're not criticizing Sark and Kyle Flood for not adding more from the portal. That happens if Texas suffers a few more injuries on the offensive line and the O-line is not good. And if the O-line's not good, it's going to make this offense struggle, and that's going to make Texas struggle to get back to where it's been the last couple of seasons. So, yeah, it sucks. I mean, Texas had some pretty good fortune in terms of offensive line health last year. They started the same 5 guys for all 12 regular season games. Of course, Kelvin Banks got hurt against A&M, and missed the Georgia SEC title game. But for the most part, the Horns were healthy up front. Not the case early on in camp. The good news is you didn't lose a starter, but the bad news is you probably lost your best backup tackle, maybe your best backup offensive lineman, and you lose him before you even have a scrimmage, obviously before the season even starts. So that's a big bummer for Texas. The Horns are going to need guys like Nick Brooks and Jordan Coleman and Jaden Chapman to step up. Again, Baker's the guy. I think you should feel good about him as your starter, but you're one play away from being in a very, very tough spot at right tackle. That's a big blow for Texas. Again, thoughts and prayers to Andre Cojoe, wishing him a speedy recovery from a season-ending knee injury. But that's a tough loss for Kyle Flood and company. His job just got a little bit tougher here in 2025. All right, we'll take your thoughts. Comment below. What's your panic level with the Texas offensive line, or do you feel good enough about everything that Texas has behind Andre Cojoe? Would love to hear from y'all. We've got one more segment on a Monday show. How about a few under-the-radar players? Yeah, 3 guys who are going to play bigger roles than you may realize for the 2025 Texas Longhorns. We've had enough bad news. Let's get back to the good news, and we'll do that next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Game Time. Oh, man, we've all been there, logging on early, waiting for concert tickets to go on sale, and then boom, all of a sudden the tickets you're looking to buy, they get sold, and you don't know how you're going to see your favorite artist perform. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. They make getting concert tickets easier than ever before. Prices actually drop the closer you get to showtime. So you could save up to 60% with their killer last minute deals. You also get a view from your seat before you purchase. So you know exactly what you are going to see when you step foot in the arena or at the venue. They've got it all with Game Time. And again, they've got their Game Time guarantee. They have your back with cancellation protection and so much more. No hidden fees as well. So the place to buy concert tickets and sports tickets, of course, is Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you are going to get $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. A few more takeaways from the opening week of Texas fall camp. We've spent a lot of time, talking about Arch Manning and C.J. Baxter's return and Parker Livingston and, Grayson Littleton's incredibly impressive start and Trey Moore's position change. We've talked a lot about the big front page headlines so far. This segment isn't about those topics. These might not be front page names. These might not be headline grabbers, but these are 3 guys who are having tremendous starts to the fall that could be X factors for the Longhorns winning a national championship this coming season. We'll start with Emmett Mosley, the 5th. He's looked really good. He's looked smooth out there, making catches on deep and intermediate routes the first couple of days. Now, last week, this really stood out to me. Chris Jackson, the Longhorns wide receivers coach, met with the media, and he said, quote, "There's no doubt he'll be one of the guys that will be in our rotation. End of story. We brought him here for a reason," end quote. Emmett Mosley put up good numbers, 48 catches, 525 yards, 6 touchdowns at Stanford last year, and he did that despite missing the first month of his season with a knee injury. He actually tore his ACL in his senior year of high school in the state of California. Texas was recruiting him early. They stopped recruiting him, as did a number of other schools, when he did tear his ACL. So kind of, fell off the radar in terms of a highly touted recruit. Starts his career at Stanford, puts up good numbers, and then, now is here with the Texas Longhorns. And I think he's going to be a big factor in the offense. More importantly, so does his position coach, Chris Jackson. Jackson also said, quote, "What he was able to do as a freshman to catch the touchdowns he caught, to be upwards of 40 catches and have 500-plus receiving yards as a true freshman coming off an ACL injury, that's unbelievable." And, quote, by the way, 4 of his 6 touchdown catches came on 4th down last season. So critical moments, he was the guy that Stanford turned to in 2024. You think about Matthew Golden, how good he was as a transfer in big moments last year. Same thing with A.D. Mitchell 2 years ago. Big spots. He was the guy Quinn Ewers relied on to make a big play. That could be Emmett Mosley the 5th for Arch Manning. this season. So don't sleep on him. Everyone's talking about Wingo and Moore and Livingston, rightfully so, but Mosley's going to put up numbers this year. Feel really good about that. Number 2, Ryan Niblett. Ryan Niblett may be Keelan Robinson 2.0. Jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife type of player. He's been one of the most unselfish players on the Longhorns roster since he got to campus in 2023. Started as a wide receiver. When CJ Baxter and Christian Clark got hurt during camp last year, he switched over to running back to help fill the void. He actually scored a rushing touchdown against ULM during the season. This spring, he moved over to defense to play nickel. Texas was moving Jalen Gilbo from nickel to the outside, so Niblett moved over there. And then Grayson Littleton has played really well. Wardell Mack has played really well at nickel. So now Ryan Niblett's back on offense, working with the receivers again. Point is, he's incredibly selfless, and he's also an incredible athlete. DeAndre Moore last week said he might be the fastest guy on the team. Speed kills. You want that guy out there. So Ryan Niblett's going to have a role. And Jeff Banks, the special teams coordinator, called Niblett, quote, phenomenal and dynamic, end quote. He also said Niblett is one of the 3 contenders to be the returner for Texas this season, along with DeAndre Moore and Quintravion Wisner, who we all know are great players. Don't sleep on Ryan Niblett. He's going to have a role. I don't quite know what position he's going to play, but he is going to be on the field for Texas, and he's going to make some things happen. And last but not least, Christian Clark, the running back, the second-year running back coming off that torn Achilles. Look, the running back room is jam-packed, but Clark has my attention. He was out there for the spring. Felt like a minor miracle considering it was like 7 months after a full tear of his Achilles last fall. But he was out there for the spring, and now early this fall, he's basically 100%. Going full speed, he's cutting, running through drills, doing teamwork, all of those things. And he's been running third for a lot of these drills, behind Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter, but ahead of Jarrett Gibson, who obviously, was a big part of Texas's running back room last season. That's interesting, and I think it is worth bringing up. And I know we brought this up before, but former Texas running backs coach Tashard Choice once compared, maybe more than once, compared Christian Clark to Bijan Robinson. And I saw a recent quote from Tashard Choice where he said, quote, if he gets faster, he'll be in a league of his own, end quote. Also called him an animal. He said his ability to shift laterally at top speed is ridiculous. Steve Sarkisian has openly talked about Christian Clark and, his balance and his one-cut ability and his hands and everything. This guy gets rave reviews from everybody all the time. That's great news. It's going to be tough to get snaps, at running back this season. Wisner's the lone returning 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC. CJ Baxter, former number 1 running back recruit in the country. He's got the experience, and it seems like he's back to 100%, or at least progressing towards 100% right now as well. But Christian Clark's damn good. It's going to be tough to get snaps there. I think he's going to get them. This is a talent that will be too good to leave on the sidelines throughout 2025. So don't sleep on Emmett Mosley. Don't sleep on Ryan Niblett. Don't sleep on Christian Clark. Those guys could be X factors for the Horns winning the SEC and hopefully bringing the first national championship back to Texas in 2 decades. All right. That's going to do it for today's show. If you made it this far, number 1, thank you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications, all of those great things. We really do appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Bets with my man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers. They're your one-stop shop for all of your sports betting needs. Expert analysis, game picks, the lock of the day, you name it, they've got you covered. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll have more Texas football fall camp news to get into, some recruiting as well. Knock on wood, hopefully no more injury news to talk about. But a lot going on the 40 acres right now, and we've got you covered all the time right here on Locked On Longhorns. But that'll do it for today's show. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.